Chapter 6. Desire Unleashed. Hospital was no place for such a conversation, and she was too proud to let herself into doing it in duty hours. Days passed. The opportunity presented itself when the patient Yajuvendra finally got discharged, alive and thriving as best as could be. This called for a department treat. It was a moment to be proud of, to be happy about, and to be celebrated by the department, as was the culture with such difficult cases. The sponsor was none other than Dr. Manav Pandit. Instead of the hospital cafeteria, it would be a formal dinner at the city's lavish five-star hotel on demand of the residents this time. This was her chance. She chose her cocktail dress with utmost care. She had to look her best tonight. It was an off-shoulder, fiery red, form-fit Marks and Spencer above-knee outfit with bell sleeves. Her hair left to play on her shoulders, eye makeup and lip color complementing the color of her dress. Black stilettos enhanced her tall frame. She was pleased with the whole effect. Yuvan would be at the door any moment now. It was getting hard to wait. She checked and rechecked her reflection in the mirror critically. She was just about to call him up when the doorbell rang. She ran as fast as was possible, trying hard not to trip on her heels. On opening the door, she let out a scream seeing what she saw. Towering in front of her was Yuvan, in black dinner jacket, his hair with perfect side fades and clean Ivy League top, horseshoe mustache and beard. With an expression of shock and loads of admiration, he said, "You look stunning," and smiled. She was in control by then. "You do not look bad either, Dr. Yuvan. In fact, I never thought that was possible." She laughed as her eyes moved from his head to shoes. He too teased her with, "Same pinch. Now come on, or do you want to be late for your blessed Manav sir's party?" She followed, hitting him on the back with her clutch. What Yvonne missed was the blush that had appeared on her cheeks at the mention of Manav's name. When they reached the poolside where the party was, together they had looks to kill. The whole department was already there, and every conversation stopped dead at the sight of them. As they joined, they wished Manav along with the other seniors, and the party resumed. Everyone was praising both of them, but Ridhima was searching Manav's face for signs of appreciation. She went on with the drinks, talking with the colleagues and friends, but keeping Manav fixed in her range of view. She needed him to be alone to broach the subject. One of their friends was saying, "Let's see if Yuvan's jacket pocket has paratha today." Replying to the questioning eyes, he said, "Manav sir, in junior residency, Yuvan used to carry paratha achar wrapped in newspaper in his apron pockets. Most of the times we would thieve it before he could get to catch a bite." They all laughed. So tonight, when he is so formally and handsomely dressed for who knows who, glancing towards Ridhima naughtily, we wondered what we would get in his pockets today. The laugh echoed again. Even Manav couldn't be aloof. "Well, Yuvan, is it something edible or some inanimate thing like maybe a solitaire?" He winked. Yuvan blushed. Ridhima wasn't at all into the topic and was mechanically smiling. Soft music, cool breeze, soothing ambience. She tried to relax. Manav was in conversation with someone. She walked up to him and gave a curt nod when he glanced at her. He returned the greeting and, discerning no urgency, continued and completed his ongoing conversation before bidding his friend goodbye. She felt suddenly weak at the knees. All she wanted to do at that moment was to turn invisible and go on looking at him. It was not to be, and he turned to her with a questioning, "Yes, Ridhima?" She was completely tongue-tied. Sensing her hesitation, he said, "Come," and walked on towards a table nearby, picking up 2 glasses of mocktails from the tray of a passing waiter on his way. He placed the glasses on the table, gestured her to be seated, and himself settled on the opposite chair, opening his front jacket button as he did so. He started sipping on his drink and waited patiently. When nothing came from her except fidgeting in her chair, he finally said, "There's something vital that you want to discuss, I believe?" There was a flicker of movement of her head in affirmation. "Go on then, you have my undivided attention," he said, leaning on the backrest, again waiting. This was the moment. She breathed in, mustered all the courage that she could, and started. "Sir, it's months now that I have been in this war with myself, my thoughts and feelings short circuiting inside my head. Whether it's idol worship, infatuation, or love, I know not. But the fact of the matter is, if there has to be a life for me, it has to be with you or none at all. It's not a split-second fad, sir. It's after a constant conflict of thoughts, dilemma, and contemplation of months that I say what I say to you today. If I did not do it now, I would go crazy." She sighed and relaxed. She had finally done it. She breathed. The ball was in his court. Silence that followed was killing. Ridhima looked up fleetingly at Manav. His expressions were inscrutable, but calm and totally in control. It was her turn to wait now. He stood up and started walking. After a few steps, he turned, walked back, and stood near her. The familiar, strong musk of his perfume invaded her senses. She was shaken out as he spoke. "Ridhima, I hold you in very high regard. As a person, as a department colleague, as a professional, you've always proven yourself to be unparalleled. The problem that you're facing right now is unfortunately an integral part of being human. I must also say that I am flattered for having been given such a high position by a person of your worth." Ridhima was at the end of her tethers by now. What was coming next? In total contrast, Manav sauntered towards the chair and seated himself comfortably while continuing with his edification. "I am very sure you'll agree with me when I say these curious matters of life cannot be orchestrated. Two individual minds with very individual goals, priorities, and philosophies will naturally have very individual opinions, preferences, and expectations in life. These can either be in sync with or be entirely contrary to one another. That way, does that mean married people should never be happy being dissimilar individuals as you mentioned, sir?" she retorted. "Or if I may rephrase my question, no two individuals should marry at all." "Requisites for happiness are also individual to every person, Ridhima," he said. "Marriage doesn't come with a guarantee for that. Two people should be together when they vibe well and most of the facets match. For instance, you and Yuvan. You have both grown up together and share a very strong and powerful bond with each other. This will fuel and channelize your energies faster towards your goals. You both complement each other," he continued. "We are not here to discuss this, sir. It's not about him and me, but me and you," Ridhima snapped. "All right," Manav seemed to agree. "My apologies. If I must, then I want to clear my stand. I have my life sorted in a very different manner, Ridhima, and this issue has no place in it at the moment. I wish you all success in your future. If you'll excuse me, I would like to take your leave now, he said with finality, standing up. You say man is a social animal. The worst punishment to him would be to leave him in seclusion, do you not, sir? She said, now looking up at him as if daring him to deny. I am in complete agreement to that, yes, he said, seating himself back. Then why do you yourself want to stay that way? She was persistent. I do not think I am, Ridhima. What you want to label as seclusion may be different for different people and perspectives, he said firmly. You mean to say you're happy being a loner? Or if I may rephrase again, do you prefer to keep up the facade of being happy alone than with a companion or a soulmate in your life? She was unrelenting. Manav smiled. I am happy and I am not alone either. Really? And how is that, may I ask? She fumed. I am married, he replied calmly. Great. And how is it that in the last 1 year, none of us here have got the privilege of meeting your better half? She taunted, breathing heavily now. She isn't here. He was as unperturbed as ever. Ah, how convenient. Meaning that your definition of being together is something apart from what the dictionary says. Her sarcasm was volatile. It means exactly what it is, Ridhima, he said. Fair enough, she mellowed down. Then you would agree, I suppose, that change is the only permanent thing in life, won't you? Yes, I would, he said nonchalantly. Then don't you think, sir, there should be at least a scope of progression for consideration of available options in the current scenario? Her voice was pleading. He laughed at her persistence. You cannot fill a glass which is already full up to the brim, Ridhima. It will only spill. And if you allow, I really have to leave now. Good night to you. He got up and walked away. Right, sir. She stood and called after him. Then I too may be in full freedom to decide pestering you till I am convinced of a valid reason for your denial and dismissal of me. He turned. We shall see. He smiled and strode away, leaving her blank. She stood there for a while before coming back to the present. Ridhima walked back slowly in search of Yuvan. She had to go home now. She felt totally drained emotionally and psychologically. She found Yuvan with a group of friends a short distance away. She joined in and, seizing an opportunity, pulled him aside. She said, Yuvan, I have to go home. Can we now? He said questioningly, So soon? Are you not enjoying yourself? Did you have dinner yet? I am famished. Come on, let's have a bite, then we'll leave. Ridhima wasn't feeling hungry. She said, Never mind, you carry on. I'll take a cab. She turned. Yuvan held her hand. Wait, okay, let's go. She insisted. Don't fret, Yuvan, I'll manage, relieving her hand from his grasp. But he was already bidding his friends goodbye and sprinting towards her. Once on their way, Ridhima let go. Tears welled her eyes. Whether it was the denial or the exhaustion, she knew not. She just felt like crying. The bike raised ahead. Her tears were forced out and away by the strong gush of wind. Still they managed to flow relentlessly. Yuvan sensed something was grossly wrong. He slowed down near a fast food joint. Before she could resist, he took her hand and went inside. He ordered sandwiches and asked her gently, What happened, Ridhima? As if waiting desperately for an outlet, she poured out everything that had happened. Yuvan didn't know what to say or think. He should have been happy, being romantically inclined to her himself, but he wasn't. He was rather miserable. Here was the girl he had loved all his life, heartbroken, owing to the rejection by another man that he adored. He couldn't hate him. It wasn't Manav's fault. He, on the contrary, had suggested to her that they, Yuvan and Ridhima, should be together. That she did not love him was itself a hard blow to suffer, on top of which this had happened. The one person he always wanted to see smiling was Woebegone. He was utterly helpless. He did all he could to assuage her sadness, but there wasn't much in his control. They reached the residence hostel in long last. They walked a while in the pavement. She started talking in a composed manner now. I have not given up, Yuvan, she said. I cannot. He spoke words in agreement and encouragement. Yes, Ridhima, most certainly, he said. He was thankful. He had feared worse. Rejection can reflect in very many unpleasant ways. She thanked him finally for his support and said good night. It was a restless night for Ridhima. On the one hand, she was relieved that she had finally spilled the beans and ridden herself of the burden, and on the other, Manav's rejection was unacceptable, though not completely unexpected. She had been somehow prepared for the response she got. She wouldn't surrender, nor would she despair. She was convinced Manav reacted this way only because he was caught unawares. Given a chance to reflect on it sensibly, she was sure he would welcome the prospect of having her in his drab life. She slept finally, deciding clearly upon her future strategy. In accordance to what she had told Manav, she would not give up till she got a reason strong enough to justify his refusal.